Tonight, the major escalation in attacks on energy facilities in the Middle East, sending oil prices soaring. And this just in, the Pentagon racing to deploy thousands of additional Marines to the region. Stunning new images from inside Iran. Flames erupting from one of the largest gas fields in the world after an Israeli attack. President Donald Trump warning Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, quote, "Don't do it again." And this terrifying moment, a missile slams into the ground just feet from a journalist on the front lines. Plus, Iranian missiles raining down on the Saudi capital. Our correspondent is there. Growing misery at America's airports. A violent attack on exhausted TSA officers at LAX. Security lines snaking downstairs. And the major airport now closing half of its checkpoints. Our exclusive new reporting on allegations of corruption inside the Department of Homeland Security. Contractors say that White House officials asked them to pay Corey Lewandowski. How the White House is responding. The heartbreaking update in the search for that missing college student in Spain. Divers pulling his body from the sea. What we're learning about his final moments. Dolores Huerta sitting down for her first interview since accusing labor rights activist Cesar Chavez of sexual assault. We talked to the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist she spoke to. A Florida sheriff office now going viral for its unique approach to controlling spring break chaos. Plus, what a surprising new study suggests about alcohol. Can wine extend your life? Top Story starts right now. And good evening, I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom. We begin tonight with breaking news. Two sources familiar with the decision telling NBC News the U.S. is accelerating its deployment of troops to the Middle East, with thousands more Marines and sailors set to deploy in the coming days. It comes amid a major escalation in attacks on oil facilities in the region. New video showing that Iranian gas field up in flames after Israeli strikes. We are also seeing new images of Iran firing back, hitting an Israeli oil refinery. Iranian officials saying these strikes show only a fraction of their power. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar also reporting attacks on their oil infrastructure, as the threat of a widening war has some in the region warning we are close to a point of no return. It comes amid new strikes by the U.S. against Iranian naval targets in the Strait of Hormuz, and Israeli forces releasing this video of apparent strikes on Iranian assets in the Caspian Sea. And watch this terrifying moment captured on Russian state TV, an Israeli missile slamming into the ground just feet from a journalist in Lebanon. The IDF says they issued a warning prior to this strike as their offensive against Hezbollah intensifies. The ripple effects felt here at home. The average price of gas is up 90 cents since the start of the war. Jet fuel prices are up 70%, causing airfare costs to skyrocket. And mortgage rates, those jumped to the highest levels in more than 3 months. We'll have more on the impact here at home, but I want to get right to Keir Simmons on that breaking news. Keir, thousands more U.S. sailors and Marines heading to the region.
That's right, Ellison. Those two sources familiar with the decision telling NBC News that 2,200 U.S. Marines will head to this region in the coming days. That is earlier than expected as the war here continues to escalate. Tonight, new images of Iranian gas installations consumed by fire after an Israeli strike, which, along with Iranian strikes on energy targets, have sent oil and gas prices surging. President Trump saying he spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, telling him not to do it again.
I told him don't do that, and he won't do that. We didn't discuss. You know, we're independent. We get along great.
Tonight, Netanyahu responding.
Israel acted alone against the Slawia gas compound. Fact number two, President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding out.
And tonight, a US F-35 jet making an emergency landing after suspected enemy fire, according to an official familiar with the incident. CENTCOM saying the aircraft landed safely and the pilot is in stable condition. All as Iran unleashing more attacks on its neighbors. Debris from interceptions igniting this oil installation, Saudi Arabia said. This shelter-in-place alarm on people's phones is suddenly much more frequent here. The ever-expanding impact of this war. The Saudi foreign minister condemning Iran's attacks.
What possible military purpose can you have for attacking a refinery in a non-combatant?
Can Saudi Arabia now ever envisage an Iran that is able to threaten it with missiles and drones and is able to determine the oil price by effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz?
What little trust there was before has completely been shattered.
All as the Pentagon saying it's decimating Iran's ability to attack, with Iranian missile and drone strikes down 90%.
They would shoot a lot more if they could, but they can't.
And Keir Simmons is back with us. Keir, the Israeli Prime Minister is also making headlines with some comments about the timeline here, correct?
That's right, Ellison. Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that Iran can no longer enrich uranium and cannot manufacture ballistic missiles. Netanyahu saying the war will be over sooner than people think. But Ellison, here in Saudi Arabia, the missiles and drones continue to come. Ellison.
NBC's chief international correspondent Keir Simmons in Riyadh. Thank you and stay safe. Now to the White House, where despite those additional troops heading to the region, President Trump says he has no plans to put U.S. troops on the ground. Here's NBC's Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, President Trump dismissing the possibility of any American boots on the ground inside Iran.
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you. But I'm not putting troops.
He's also confirming the Pentagon's asking Congress for another $200 billion.
It's a small price to pay to make sure that we stay tippy-top.
That funding request could face skepticism on Capitol Hill as the war's economic impacts ripple across the U.S.
Everything's just going up and up and up and up.
The average price of gas has climbed about 90 cents a gallon over the last few weeks.
I thought it would be worse, much worse, actually. I thought there was a chance it could be much worse. It's not bad, and it's going to be over with pretty soon.
Polls show most Republicans support the president's decision to attack Iran, but clearly some don't, as this voter in Pennsylvania told NBC's John Allen.
If you could say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now, what would it be?
You're a worthless pile of shit.
And you voted for him how many times?
3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
Still, the administration is defending the war. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying today there have been defections within Iran's leadership, though he did not offer specifics.
The regime will probably collapse within itself.
During a meeting today with Japan's prime minister in the Oval Office, a Japanese reporter asked the president why he did not give advance warning to allies before attacking Iran.
And we didn't tell anybody about it because we wanted surprise. Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay? Right?
And with that, Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from the White House. So, Gabe, the Trump administration also announcing some new efforts to reduce energy prices.
Yes, Allison, the Treasury Secretary said today that the U.S. may lift sanctions on Iranian oil that is already in transit amid those surging energy prices. He also said that move could free up 140 million barrels of oil. Separately, the Energy Secretary said the administration will not restrict U.S. exports of oil or natural gas. Allison.
Gabe Gutierrez, thank you. I want to bring in our experts on this now. John Kilduff, founding partner of Again Capital, and Colonel Steve Warren, NBC News military analyst. Thank you both so much for being with us this evening. Colonel Steve, let's start with you because there has been a lot of talk about why the United States got into this war in the first place, right? Questions and conflicting messages on whether or not it was regime change, Iran's possible nuclear capabilities, oil control. Now with Israel targeting Iranian oil fields, what do you make of that? Has the strategy of this war changed? And has the U.S. lost control of the narrative here?
Yeah, the narrative is a tricky one. I think, we heard the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff this morning in a Pentagon press conference, and we heard directly from him where he kind of reaffirmed the military strategy here, which is to essentially, in a nutshell, eliminate Iran's ability to project power outside of their own borders, which means destroy all their missiles, destroy their capability to build new missiles, sink their navy, and, of course, go after their nuclear weapons. And so I think the military remains focused on those fairly cleanly defined objectives. What we still need to see is how those military objectives feed into a larger national security set of objective. As you very smartly pointed out, Ellison, is it about oil? Is it about regime change? Is it about something else? These things haven't yet become clear to us, but what is clear is that the General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is very much focused on his military tasks.
Colonel, I want to also show our viewers a map of some of the reported strikes. This is according to the foreign ministries of these countries. But looking at this map and all of the countries involved, to you, I mean, does it feel like the war is widening and widening beyond is something that's imminent?
We've trained for war against Iran for more than 30 years. And in every single training exercise and every opportunity the military has to discuss war with Iran, the very first thing that comes up is that it will rapidly widen into a regional conflict. And that is exactly what this map shows, a regional conflict. It's already happened, Ellison. This is now a regional conflict. If you'd wondered what it looks like, this is it. And so now what we have to do is try to bring it to a rapid close before it continues to spread anymore.
John, let's bring you in here and talk a little bit about the pocketbook impact, right? With these escalating strikes on oil infrastructure in a growing number of countries, oil prices, they have skyrocketed. How damaging have the last several days and this war thus far been to the energy industry?
Well, it's been incredibly damaging. The pricing, we're not feeling it as much here in the United States, but out in Asia, they're really feeling it. The diesel prices there are at a record. Jet fuel prices there are at a record. We're hearing about spot shortages now in Japan developing, in lesser countries too, like Vietnam and Malaysia. There is terrific concern. I will say the administration is certainly laser focused on this. They have pulled out every tool out of the bag here to try to combat the rise in prices, and it has been somewhat effective. We're keeping U.S. WTI prices below $100 a barrel still. Between the Venezuelan sanction relief and now the potential for Iranian sanction relief on the barrels that are on ships already, that's a good chunk of supply to the U.S. and to the global market. That's helping to ease things. So for now, we're getting through that. I will tell you, though, that the cumulative shut-in or production that's gone offline exceeds 10 million barrels a day. And that's a number that's going to be hard to crack to the downside until there's a return to normalcy and that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened to navigation. So as a result, we are going to continue to see higher prices because the market digests these moves, like the move to potentially reduce the sanctions on the Iranian barrels on sea. But you'll see that as we can look past that, and there's no sign of things easing in the Strait in particular, the prices are going to march inexorably higher.
And, John, it isn't just gas prices, right? We mentioned earlier we're seeing airfare costs skyrocket, mortgage rates jumping to the highest levels in more than 3 months. And when we're talking about fuel broadly, it is crucial to basically everything in this country and the rest of the world. How much worse does this get if this war keeps going?
So I have pretty much circled, March 31st, beginning of April here. And I'll defer to the Colonel, but we need this Strait of Hormuz to be opened. It's become, those of us in the oil market, we thought that Strait of Hormuz would be the top priority. But obviously there's other military targets that had to be dealt with, and we've been told that now. But it's my understanding, at least, that the Strait reopening is the next sort of step here over the next couple of weeks. When I hear Benjamin Netanyahu saying that the war will be over sooner than we thought, a big part of the war being over for us in the market is the Strait being reopened and a return of flows of crude oil and other key commodities to the rest of the world. We get that, we're out of the woods. We don't get that by, say, April 1st. The woods are going to get very thick, heavy, and dark.
All right, John Kilduff, Colonel Steve Warren, thank you both for your time and insights. We really appreciate it. And back here at home, those long TSA lines around the country growing even longer tonight as TSA officers continue to work without pay, some calling out to work second jobs. Here's Tom Costello.
Just as the next wave of spring break travelers hits the nation's airports, key TSA checkpoints are in gridlock and meltdown. Hours-long lines at Philly with half the terminal checkpoints closed. Nationwide, the TSA says roughly 10% of its officers are calling out every day, working second jobs to make ends meet. 38% call out in Atlanta with 90-minute TSA lines.
It's okay, and this is the long line.
38% call out in Houston, too, with 2-hour delays. Adding to the stress, assaults on TSA officers. In Dallas, a 33-year-old man arrested for punching 2 TSOs and a police officer, facing up to 20 years in prison. The U.S. attorney warning violent conduct perpetrated against TSA and law enforcement officers will never be tolerated. Meanwhile, no progress in bipartisan talks on Capitol Hill to end the partial shutdown.
Do you see me? Do you see that I'm showing up every day?
TSA officer Heaven Jones has 3 children to feed.
A lot of stress on my family, deciding whether to pay for groceries, gas, all different types of bills.
At airports nationwide, airlines and food banks are feeding TSA staffers. The Trump administration warns if the shutdown and TSA call-outs continue,
you're going to see small airports, I believe, shut down. You're going to see extensive lines, and air travel is going to almost come to a grid halt, stop.
Tonight, the president of the union representing the TSA is blasting members of Congress who have left town without coming to any agreement on how to fund Homeland Security and specifically TSA. And today we saw these members of Congress walking right through that checkpoint to leave town, going through the TSA checkpoint and past the very officers who are going to continue to work without a paycheck. Ellison?
Tom Costello, thank you. And devastating news in the search for the American college student missing in Barcelona. Police now say they have recovered his body in the water off the beach where he was last seen. Molly Hunter is there tonight.
Tonight, after a frantic 3-day search, police recovered the body of 20-year-old Jimmy Gracie from the water off this popular Barcelona beach. His friends tell NBC News this is where they last saw him partying at 3 a.m. Tuesday morning, and nothing seems suspicious. Since then, they've been putting up posters in hopes someone may have seen him.
This is Xoco. It is super popular with young tourists who come here to Barcelona. And I just want to show you how close it is to the beach and to the water here.
Scuba divers, boats and helicopters have been scouring the area, desperately searching for clues.
We're on the beach now about 300 feet from where Xoco is. And police tell NBC News that Jimmy Gracie's body was recovered just off the coast this afternoon.
The Chicago area native, a junior at the University of Alabama, traveled to Barcelona for spring break to visit friends studying abroad. Gracie's aunt, Beth Marin O'Reilly, spoke to NBC News last night.
I think everybody would want a brother or a nephew like Jimmy. He's a great kid. He's responsible. He's a leader.
Today, members of Gracie's fraternity, Theta Chi, rallied together. The president of the chapter, who's also in Barcelona, described Gracie as a beloved brother and a man of upstanding character.
And Allison, you can see behind me, that is the beach. It gets really crowded around midnight. A lot of young tourists, particularly American college students who are studying abroad. And that club, Xoco, is where Jimmy Gracie and his friends were partying Monday night. Now you can see it's right on the water. The beach goes right up to the water, and there's actually a little jetty right there with some rocks. Right over there is where police recovered the body earlier today. And after the police recovered the body, before it was identified, Jimmy Gracie's family released a statement. They said they were grateful for the kindness and concern that has been shown for our family during this difficult time. And they added, thanking people for holding their family in their thoughts and prayers. Really devastating news for that family tonight, Ellison.
Molly Hunter in Barcelona, thank you. And we are back with an NBC News exclusive report. New allegations of corruption inside the Department of Homeland Security. At the center, Corey Lewandowski, a close ally of the president. NBC's Julia Ainsley has more.
Tonight, Corey Lewandowski, facing allegations he solicited payment in exchange for securing contracts at DHS, according to multiple industry sources and government officials. In one incident, Lewandowski, a longtime Trump ally and powerful aide to outgoing DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, told the CEO of GEO Group, the nation's largest donor of immigrant detention centers, he wanted to be paid for securing new contracts for the company. Two industry sources told NBC News. GEO Group refused. And a major development tonight on the controversy around this ad.
But for the freedom only America provides.
NBC News confirming the DHS Inspector General is now investigating the awarding of this $220 million campaign. President Trump recently asked aides whether Lewandowski profited personally from the campaign, with one senior White House official telling NBC News he remarked to advisors, Corey made out on that one.
And Julia joins us now from Washington. As you reported this out, you uncovered another example, I understand, of possible pay-to-play involving Corey Lewandowski. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right, Ellison. You just heard about a direct solicitation for payment where Corey was in front of a CEO of GEO Group. That's according to our sources, though Lewandowski denies that. We have another example of an indirect solicitation, this one involving a company called Salas Worldwide Solutions, who had previously been awarded a $1 billion contract by DHS earlier in the year. And in September, we understand that a representative from Salas reached out to a marketing firm asking if they would like to be a subcontractor on two large contracts totaling $20 million and then $40 million. But the catch was that the subcontract would have to hire a consultant who would manage the relationship. When the marketing firm asked what they meant by that, they said that the consulting firm would be hired, would be an LLC that this person would have to hire that would indirectly take those funds and pay Corey Lewandowski. That, of course, is another thing that Salas has denied, as well as Corey Lewandowski. But at this point, we are hearing from White House officials, and especially one senior White House official saying they are aware of the allegations of pay-to-play, and another White House official saying they've received dozens of complaints from at least 4 companies about Corey Lewandowski's role in the contracting process. All of this, Ellison, as there continues to be an IG investigation into that ad campaign, and Democrats in the House are calling for more investigations to what is happening with contracts, even as Secretary Kristi Noem leaves the Department of Homeland Security.
Julia Ainsley, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Now to Top Stories news feed, starting with the former reality show star accused of molesting a minor. Authorities say Joseph Garrett Duggar, who starred on the TLC show 19 Kids and Counting, was arrested after being accused of molesting a 9-year-old girl. Police say it happened 6 years ago during a vacation in Florida. The reality show was canceled after the oldest son, Josh Duggar, allegedly molested several children, including some of his sisters. He was sentenced to federal prison back in 2022 for receiving and possessing child sex abuse images. We've reached out to the Duggar family and TLC, but have not heard back yet. And in Hawaii, opening statements started today in the trial of a Maui doctor accused of trying to kill his wife while they were on a hike last year. Prosecutors say Gerhard Koenig pushed his wife toward the edge of a cliff before attempting to jab her with a syringe and then bashing her head with a rock. The defense argues that the incident looked worse than it was, that Koenig never intended to kill his wife. And a massive fire erupting near Houston. Take a look at this. Those big booms and sparks that you can see, those are actually fireworks. Officials say the flames broke out inside an RV before spreading to some boxes of nearby fireworks. It's unclear exactly how it happened, but luckily, we're told no one was hurt. We are hearing from Dolores Huerta, the prominent labor leader who came forward yesterday on social media accusing her longtime collaborator, the late Cesar Chavez, of sexual abuse. Those allegations posted shortly after the release of this New York Times investigative report detailing separate allegations against Chavez involving 2 minors. Huerta speaking out in an interview on the public radio show and podcast Latino USA about 2 forced sexual encounters with Chavez, which she says resulted in pregnancies.
I was kind of trapped, you might say, and I was not expecting those incidents to happen. I felt I was alone. I didn't really have anybody close by that I could call for help or reach out to. And the way he set that up, it was to make sure that we were isolated pretty much, you know. So, I mean, that's pretty much what happened. It never would have happened in the first place if I had not had this great admiration for him. And he was my employer. He was my boss, you know.
And for more on her interview with Dolores Huerta, we are so fortunate to be joined by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and host of Latino USA, Maria Hinojosa. Maria, thank you so much for joining us on Top Story. I want to start by just saying, for everyone watching, they should really go and listen to this podcast in its entirety. You did an extraordinary job, and you also very bravely talked about your own personal experience. Talk to me about what this interview was like for you and what you feel like you really learned through it.
Look, if you know Dolores Huerta, and I've known her for decades, she is a symbol of strength. I mean, Dolores is about to turn 96 years old, but as I've been seeing her over the last 3 decades of her life, she's like strong, she's animated, she's always positive. And yesterday in the interview, it was like she was broken. You could hear in her voice, you just heard it, the deep sadness. What people need to understand is that Dolores is coming to terms with this just along with everybody else. It wasn't like she knew the extent of what Cesar Chavez was capable of doing. So everybody's in a state of shock. She's in a state of shock. And it is hard for me to hear when she said, I asked her, I was like, was it worth it? Your silence. And she said the movement really needed to be, so it was worth it. That really hurts.
She also talked about some of the guilt, it sounded like, that she had of now finding out that there were others. And then there was this moment where she said something along the lines of, I wonder if maybe if I'd spoken out sooner, it wouldn't have happened. I want to play another exchange from your interview where you asked her about that dynamic that she had with Cesar Chavez. Let's listen.
Did you ever confront Cesar Chavez about his attacks on you?
You know what? I never did, and I guess that's the one thing that I'm sorry about, because God knows, had I done that, maybe in some way it would have prevented other women and girls, who knows, you know.
There's so many reasons why women, particularly in this country, don't feel safe, often coming forward and saying what has happened to them. You look at statistics from government data, networks like RAIN, and they say 2 out of 3 people who have been sexually assaulted do not report it. For her, there were layers to why she didn't talk about this, right? You touched on them about what she felt like it could do for the movement at the time. Take us through a little more of that, of the dynamics that she felt were at play here.
So the first sexual assault happens, I think, in 1960. The second one happens in 1966. Can you imagine Dolores Huerta in her mid-30s, not famous? Yes, she was next to Cesar Chavez, but she herself did not have that fame. What would have happened if she came forward at that time? I mean, one, she would have probably not been believed. She would have been maligned. I mean, Cesar Chavez clearly was a brilliant organizer, but he was also a horrific strategist, not just in movements, but in terms of abuse of women, girls, and teenage girls, right? Like, he was very strategic. As Dolores said in the interview, she said, I respected him so much, I admired him so much, that was part of what he did. Because then you find yourself alone with him, and you're like, well, I just admire him so much, nothing's gonna happen. That's the moment when he attacks. But for people who are not survivors of rape, right, and it took me until about a decade ago, in therapy, to understand what happened when I was 16. And so we don't want to come forward. The last thing we want to do is to say, I am a rape survivor. You don't want to say that. You don't want to say, I have been raped. That's why I say it, because I'm a public person. I've done the therapy. I have a lot of support. And I think that's what Dolores wants to do now. She's like, I want to talk about this. Let's make this an issue that is brought to the forefront.
You've dedicated your entire career to reporting on the Latino community and issues that impact them. When you think about Chavez's legacy, what this revelation means for that legacy, and also what it means just for everyone who had admired him, the work that he had done, obviously the movement itself, and you touched on this in your interview, it was not one person ever at any point, but he has been and is so important to so many people. This does change things. What does it mean moving forward?
Well, you know, if you listen to what Dolores Chavez says, Dolores Huerta, what Dolores Huerta says, she's like, you can't really throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, there was a movement. It changed my life, right, as a little Mexican immigrant kid on the south side of Chicago. Changed my life. And I think the message is we should be careful about giving men too much power. We are living in a country right now with this same experience. I mean, as I said to my colleagues, I'm not over the Epstein files yet. And then this happens. And so not giving men unchecked power, idolatry, having more women in positions of power, and as Dolores always talks about, she talks about people power. She's like, the United Farm Workers happened not because of Cesar Chavez. It was because of the people power. The fact that he was able to bring thousands upon thousands of the most powerless people together. But they made that change. Cesar Chavez didn't march from Delano to the capital of California by himself. He ends up with 10,000 people. That's why laws change. So let's bring it back to that essential lesson of Dolores Huerta, which is people power. And also, I have to say, I'm just really shocked at how quickly people are throwing her under the bus and blaming her. And that's exactly what she said. She was like, well, if we come forward, then we get blamed and attacked. So what makes us want to come forward? So I would say, just check yourselves as people are doing that.
Maria Hinojosa, thank you so much. We really appreciate you and your reporting.
Thank you so much.
And when we come back, the police crackdown in Florida, a controversial new campaign to keep spring breakers in check. Plus, the great debate over wine. Is it bad for your body or good for your health? The new study that may have just set the record straight once and for all. Stay with us. Let's turn now to Florida, where spring break is already in full swing and where law enforcement is trying a new tactic to try and combat rowdy partiers. NBC's Priscilla Thompson reports on the social media posts that officials hope will keep spring breakers under control.
We're breaking up with you. Cuddle season is over, and the Sunshine State is ready to break up with spring breakers. In Walton County, sheriff's deputies are taking to social media to roast rowdy revelers, posting a slew of photos they say show college kids being booted from rentals for bad behavior, with witty captions like "Time to go," a nod to the Louisiana State University students seen here on the curb after deputies say they were caught tossing glass bottles off a balcony. Another shows students from Ole Miss, luggage in hand, after a house party. Deputies writing, "Evictions will leave you heading back to the SIP without your deposit and no refund." They sent Oklahoma State students packing for being rowdy, cowboy. Even starting an NCAA-style scoreboard, tallying arrests for house parties, fake IDs, and drinking underage. This, the latest tactic in a wave of pushback from Florida law enforcement in spring break hotspots. From Miami Beach.
Miami Beach will continue its beach restrictions, DUI checkpoints, and parking limitations.
To Bay County.
Over here! Hey! I will take every single one of you to jail if you don't walk this way!
The sheriff's office there posting body cam of spring breakers fleeing after a house party. Deputies lining them up on the sidewalk.
So whoever rented this place, whoever paid to stay here, raise your hand right now.
To show that if you come here, law enforcement is present. We're going to not allow people to break the law, to disrespect our community, to disobey the rules that we have in place.
I guess the big question is it working? Is it a deterrent?
So we're going to see.
Back in Walton County, some online say the crackdown goes too far, but the sheriff's department disagrees. The message we're trying to send is simple, they write. If you're coming to Walton County expecting to negatively impact the quality of life for residents, you will be dealt with accordingly, hoping to prove the champion in this March Madness.
And Priscilla Thompson joins us now. Priscilla, is this tactic actually deterring those spring breakers?
Well, Ellison, it does help get the word out, is what law enforcement says, especially to their target audience with some of these viral videos that show that law enforcement is out and that they are going to be enforcing the rules. But what I heard from the Bay County Sheriff is that it's not just about the viral videos. So they posted that body cam, which also included incidents that weren't spring break related, but they also posted a video detailing, here are the rules, here's the information about the curfews and everything that's going on here, and here's what the consequences are going to be. And what I'm hearing is that that is just as key as the videos to stopping the bad behavior. And that's what we saw, as you remember, in Miami when they released that viral breaking up with spring break video. It also included there's going to be curfews, there's going to be expensive parking, there's going to be DUI checkpoints. And so they made it very clear to people coming there what the expectations were going to be. And of course, we have seen that be successful in really turning around the situation that they were dealing with their spring breakers.
Priscilla Thompson, thank you. Now to top stories, health check. And the question that's plagued happy hours around the world for so many years, is wine actually good for you? Well, a new study may be providing an answer. Researchers using a UK database found that moderate wine drinkers had a 21% lower risk of dying from heart disease compared to people who never drink or drink only occasionally. So here for a reality check is NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. I mean, studies like this, it spans a million headlines, and all of them is like, wine, we can do it. Yeah. Give us a gut check of just broadly what your takeaway is from this and what you think people need to know. Like, what's the real deal?
Right. And I don't want to bust anyone's bubble, but I think it's important to just intro this topic by saying that this was a study that was reported at a cardiology conference, and it specifically is looking at all-cause mortality as well as cardiovascular deaths specifically. Because the parallel story is that alcohol is a carcinogen, and we know that it does increase the risk of cancer. So while we're going to say that this might be some nice news you can use and sort of positive in a sense, Ellison, we can't just cloak it as this is great news about alcohol. So what the study actually found is that people who consumed a moderate amount of wine had a 21% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular causes. This was in contrast to people who didn't drink any or were occasional wine drinkers. Now, here's sort of the little kicker here. The question is, why would this be the case? Is there something inherently healthy about wine, or is it potentially the other behaviors that people are engaging in who are consuming that wine? And that's the thing that's kind of perplexed researchers for quite a while.
So when we say moderate wine drinkers, one, what do we mean by moderate? Right. And in terms of this study, it didn't find similar things when it came to like beer or liquors, right?
Exactly. So the sort of like big picture here is that we're talking about not just how much you're drinking, but what you're drinking. So the definitions, remember, a serving is 12 ounces of beer, it's 5 ounces of wine, or 1.5 ounces of spirits. For women, moderate consumption is about 3/4 to 1.5 servings a day. And for men, it's about 1.5 to 3 servings a day. So we said that there was this reduced risk of cardiovascular death with wine. But what did we see about people who drank low or occasional drinking beer or spirits? They actually had a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. Back to, again, that question, are there health behaviors associated with the type of alcohol that people are drinking that might account for some of these differences?
So when you look at the sample size here and just the length of this, it's like, what, 340,000 people over the course of 13 years? Does that make the findings more credible, or are those questions you mentioned earlier, those remain either way?
So we like when a study spans a large population and a long period of time. Are there some limitations to the study? Yes. There was self-reporting, right? So we don't know exactly how much people were drinking. It didn't take into account changes in patterns of drinking over time. But it's definitely food for thought, no pun intended. You know, the idea here is that in addition to healthy behaviors, that wine contains these polyphenols and antioxidants. But remember, you'd have to consume a lot of wine to get the health benefit of those particular compounds. Instead, you want to go for things like extra virgin olive oil, nuts, dark chocolate. Those also contain polyphenols. I don't think you're going to find a doctor who's going to say, to improve your cardiovascular health, start drinking wine. But if you're a moderate wine drinker, I think you can feel pretty happy about these results, and it's probably not contributing to excess cardiovascular death in you.
Interesting stuff. Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And when we come back, from tragedy to triumph, the high school hockey player who helped his team win the state championship, overcoming an unimaginable loss. That story is next. Finally tonight, a Rhode Island hockey team ending the season on an incredible high after tragedy rocked their rink just last month. The star senior who pushed through heartbreak to honor his family and bring home the title. Here's Tom.
With the Rhode Island State Championship on the line and 30 seconds left in regulation, senior Colin Dorgan scored the biggest goal of his life, tying it up to keep Blackstone Valley in the game. The incredible moment coming after unthinkable tragedy. His mother, brother, and grandfather died in a mass shooting last month. Police say his father brought a gun to the game and opened fire. Just weeks later, Dorgan was back on the ice. He says it's what his mom would have wanted. The initials of his loved ones lost, now on his jersey.
Right here, right on my chest, and on my shoulders. I think they're with me every step of the way.
And so on championship ice, a team who had already overcome so much this season gave it everything they had, battling into quadruple overtime when finally this incredible goal, delivering a win that meant so much more.
And in this game, in the overtimes, I think I truly felt it in my heart and my soul that they're still with me.
Thanks so much for watching Top Story. For Tom Llamas, I'm Ellison Barber in New York. Stay right there. More news is on the way.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.